Ladies and gentlemen, let me start by expressing my regret that I'm unable to be here in person today. I was very much looking forward to being part of this all-important conference and to hearing the progress being made in this industry throughout Africa. I'm glad that the African Venture Capital and Private Equity Conference is being held in Nigeria this year. It is indeed timely, as one of the key federal government focus is to develop the private equity and venture capital sector of our economy. Since coming into office about 3 years ago, our president, Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, set out to make Nigerian economy the centerpiece of his administration's agenda. Part of my job, since coming into office at the same time, as the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, has been to make the case in and outside Nigeria for investors to invest in different sectors of our economy. Africa is not a difficult continent to sell to investors anymore, not today. And that is why we are seeing continuous increases in FDI and private sector investment in our continent. Nigeria specifically has seen tremendous growth in investment as such. In 2013, for example, for the second year running, UNTAG ranked Nigeria as the #1 destination for investment in Africa, and having the 4th highest FDI returns in the world, with an average return of about 35.5%. That compares to about 6.6% globally. Nigeria today is the second largest economy in Africa. And I say for today because in the next few weeks and months or so, Nigeria will become the #1 economy in Africa. It has a working age bracket class of about 69 million, which means that Nigeria has the 9th largest workforce in the world, with a population of about 167 million people, growing at 3% per annum. A country that is expected to be the 3rd largest nation in the world by 2070, after India and China. But more importantly, it has a very young population with a median age of 18 years. The Nigerian consumer market is the largest in Africa. We, as you know, are the 7th largest producer of crude oil, 8th largest holder of gas reserve in the world, and we have 44 solid minerals in commercial quantity. And in agriculture, we have a country where we have about 84 million hectares of land where almost everything can grow, and only 40% of that is cultivated today. Despite that, Nigeria is the #1 producer in the world today of about 7 commodities. The 2nd largest producer of 3 other commodities, and the 3rd largest in about 6 other commodities. In addition to all this, our people are one of the most entrepreneurial in the world. In other words, Nigeria is an investor's dream. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at an exciting time in the history of Africa. Some would describe it as Africa is rising. Our moment has come today. We are at a time whereby the whole world is seeing the potential in this continent. Africa has the fastest growing middle class in the world today. In the last decade, Africa produced 6 of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world. In the next 5 to 10 years, Africa will also produce 7 of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world. As such, it is no surprise that key players have started to notice our country, have started to notice our continent, and are making investments in key sectors with high economic growth potential. In Nigeria, for example, we're witnessing significant investments in the petrochemical sector, more than 12 billion commitment made in that sector. We're witnessing significant investment in the auto sector, where companies like Nissan, Hyundai, Tata, Ashok Leyland have all committed to establishing their auto plants in the country. In the area of sugarcane to sugar, we've seen more than $3 billion committed to that sector. And we see more in other sectors of the economy. Ernst & Young recently reported that in 2013, $3.3 billion was raised in Africa Ventures, which was about 136% increase from 2007. When we compare this to Latin America, China, when we compare this to India, we can see that the private equity and venture capital investments decreased in these continents in 2013. This shows that whilst others may see challenges in Africa, you fund managers have looked beyond this and are capitalizing on the ample opportunities here. I therefore commend you for this bold step, for your vision, for your sophistication, and for the understanding of the African economy. And I encourage you to continue to seek investment opportunities across the continent. The Nigerian government, on its own part, is committed to supporting and providing an enabling environment for businesses to grow and for you to make the right risk-adjusted returns. Our interventions range from prioritizing and attracting investments into the power sector, because this is critical for any economy, to reviewing the entire financing value chain in Nigeria, from early stage funding through to debt capital and to capital markets. Key to this reform is the work being done on improving the private equity and venture capital sector. In September last year, a Nigerian private equity and venture capital committee was established under my directive to develop a strategy for developing the private equity venture capital sector of our economy. This involves addressing the legal, regulatory, tax, policy impediments to the growth of this sector. At this point, I would like to commend and thank the committee, which included experienced personnel, professionals from Alethea Capital, KPMG, Ododoma and Bello Sage, SEC, the NSA, ILEC, and other partners who committed time into developing the new strategy for developing the sectors and have made very, very important recommendations to government. The federal government is committed to implementing the recommendations in this report as soon as possible and to create an enabling environment for private equity and venture capital in Nigeria in order to make Nigeria more competitive as a destination for private equity and venture capital in Africa. Right now, Nigeria is on a journey towards industrialization, a journey that will grow key sectors within the economy, a journey that will reduce our reliance on crude oil export, a journey that will diversify the revenue sources of our country, a journey that will propel us, move us into a direction where other countries have gone. After all, history tells us that no nation has managed to move from being a poor to a rich nation by relying entirely on exporting raw materials without having a strong industrial and services sector. Through the Nigerian Industrial Revolution Plan, which was launched by His Excellency, President Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, on the 11th of February 2014, we are focusing on key areas of comparative and competitive advantage. Sectors where Nigeria can be number one in Africa and a top 10 player globally. The NROP addresses the fundamental drivers of competitiveness, which of course includes financing, access to affordable finance, innovation, linking innovation to industries, skills, infrastructure, mainly power, improving the investment and business climate, and so on. Access to affordable financing is therefore crucial to the success of Nigeria's industrialization plan. This means that private equity and venture capital investment is essential, particularly to the small, medium enterprises and the small and growing businesses. The Nigerian government is also putting in place initiatives to grow the micro, small and medium enterprises through the National Enterprise Development Program, which was launched also by the President on the 11th of February 2014. In Nigeria, we have a large MSME sector of approximately about 17.25 million enterprises, employing about 32 million people, which accounts for about 70% of the workforce. We have now taken the necessary steps to build and grow this sector, to treat this sector as a sector of the economy by removing the impediments to growth. That is exactly what the National Enterprise Development Program seeks to achieve, partnering with the private sector. We are delighted that we have seen strong interest from the private sector to work with government to remove these impediments and to ensure that we provide the enabling environment for the small and growing businesses to grow, and for you, the investors, to put in your capital and also help with business support services, but in the process, generates the right risk-adjusted returns for your shareholders. Ladies and gentlemen, the opportunities in Africa are endless. In Nigeria in particular, investment opportunities are enormous. Everywhere you go, every sector you go to, every part of this country, the investment opportunities there are enormous. On our part, the Nigerian government will continue to do its part to address the challenges faced in order to create the necessary environment for growth in your industry. I believe Nigeria can be number one in Africa in private equity and venture capital investment. And I believe all of you here today can make this happen. I also believe firmly that the time for Africa is now. And of course, the time for Nigeria is today. Enjoy the conference. And thank you very much.